Hello everyone. Dumelang, welcome wherever you are, wherever you're tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking another weekday moment of just creating space for yourself, and we're doing it together. Today I'm just going to get into it. Our topic is processing trauma and grief. There's so much happening for so many people right now. So I thought it would just be prudent and make sense to sit with it and create a space where if I'm feeling the heaviness of it all, I can only imagine how many of us might be feeling the same and would appreciate just taking stock of everything or thinking together about what is happening. So today is not about getting into specific topics. It's not, there's nothing of a trigger warning that needs to happen. I won't be going into detail about anything particular. Today is just about the fact that we all know on the news, on social media, there's a lot of things happening that have triggered a lot of individuals. Anyway, that is what I've been noticing. That's what I've been, be it in my work or in my personal life. I'm surrounded by a lot of people who are feeling really depleted, really triggered, really traumatized. Lots of loss, and loss looks different. It doesn't necessarily mean only death. There have been a lot of deaths, but also just a loss of sense of safety. And that's what today is about. It's about just taking a moment. Our lives are so busy, we struggle to take a moment. We also can sometimes not want to take that moment alone. And so even though you're watching, on screen and online, something about there's somebody else that is also thinking about this, even if it's just me, right? So yeah, there's a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on. A lot of people are reliving things that they didn't anticipate that they would have to relive. A lot of people are seeing things for the first time that they didn't think they'd ever have to deal with, hear about. So much that is happening in the world feels out of our control for some people, is what I'm picking up on. Be it, am I doing enough? What can I do to stop it? What I am doing doesn't feel effective. Oh my gosh, realizing the world we live in and the realities that come with it. So trauma and grief are broad. I think the nuances that aren't that don't fit a particular box or particular definition is where a lot of us can get stuck and feel debilitated, feel a deep sense of despair, feel and go into shutdown mode. So a lot of people are shutting down, feeling crippled by an overwhelming sense of what is going on. I think it's great that we have social media. I think it's great that news outlets keep us informed, but it also can get you in touch with, previously we weren't seeing things so often, so many times. Like I go on Instagram and guaranteed I'm going to see things within 2 seconds, 2 minutes, things that I didn't go on there to want to see. Like my platform has become something I can't control, simply by not algorithm, but somebody else is posting something. So people may have, seen this topic and just said, absolutely not, that's not what I wanted to engage with on YouTube today or on Instagram today, by virtue of me posting. You're sitting there in your home minding your business and you wanted to engage with the platform for something else, like going on YouTube for something else, so it's crippling also. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm rambling, but I think I'm rambling because I myself am, juggling the tension of what comes with trauma. And right now I've been speaking about vicarious trauma, perhaps, right? So being a witness to other people's experiences, and not only vicarious trauma, then vicariously through somebody else's experience being out there triggers whatever traumatic experiences you've had, so yeah, I think today is because I've been surrounded by so many people who are experiencing multiple traumas, multiple traumas and multiple losses, and I want to take stock for myself. Maybe you want to take stock for yourself. Maybe you're sitting with somebody and you're taking stock on their behalf. Holding a space isn't always about us. Sometimes we need to hold space for others, whether we are able to relate or not. Today's episode is not about giving advice or a to-do list. It's more thinking about how trauma, grief plays out, what works for you, what works for me. Did I even realize certain things about myself? Have I had a moment? This episode might be the first time in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, for people who are saying, actually, I didn't even notice that I'm experiencing certain things. What is happening for me? What is happening around me? Is it affecting me? Is it not? Somebody said to me a few weeks ago, Hopelang, your Sunday episodes are the only time that I have a moment for myself. And it took me subscribing to the channel to realize that it took me a couple of days to complete watching an episode. So with all that is happening, I think it is important to just pause a little bit. Pause a little bit and take stock of what's everything that's happening. How am I doing? How are you doing? How's everybody around me doing? Where am I pitching right now? My thing with trauma this week, with the people around me, has been a lesson of, not a lesson, I think this is something I knew. Lesson is not the right word, but being reminded how giving advice isn't always helpful, how overwhelming opinions can be. There's so many opinions going out there right now, right, wrong, a very black and white way of thinking. And like I said earlier, trauma is very nuanced, it's very layered. It because it comes in flows and ebbs and flows, sometimes the opinions are helpful, sometimes I find often not really. I find that sometimes all you need is just to sit. Just to sit. It's not always that you want to hear something. It's not always that somebody wants to hear something. Sometimes you don't know what you need, and your own opinions of yourself or your experience, I think there's something about thinking about whether that's helpful or not. This happens a lot in trauma and grief, where we give ourselves to-do lists or opinions or advice, and it's not necessarily helpful. It may not be what you need. A lot of people, when they're experiencing grief, will tell themselves how to grieve. And they have this, like I said, black and white way of thinking versus just being with the grief. And you'll hear people saying, what does that even mean, Hopelang? It means letting the natural process of what your mind and body feels like doing to do it, So, for example, for me today, I took a moment to stop being busy so I could feel what I'm feeling, which is a lot of empathy for people, where I relate, a lot of sympathy because I can relate, and just a moment to cry. I think you can feel it in my energy today that even as I'm speaking, I think my energy feels low, because it is. And recording this regardless, and being true to myself that today is not the day where I'm going to, show up like this, how I showed up last week, and all except because I'm not feeling that way. It's still important for me to put this out because it's what helps me. It's what it's what helps me feel connected to the trauma and the processing and the grief, and trusting that there'll be people out there who are able to listen to it even when I am not feeling energy levels that are up here like every other week. That's the whole point, right? Yeah, and so what I've been thinking about for myself and everybody else is what is helpful. So today for me, putting this out or recording this has felt helpful, or is feeling helpful. For you and me, is it being around people experiencing the same thing? The same type of trauma, the same type of grief, so at the clinic I work at, we have support groups, and people have been saying, I feel the need to come here because there are people who can understand, even though like you and I can lose a parent and our individual experience won't be the same, but just me being able to speak to somebody who has lost a parent already feels like a shift towards something helpful. Some people have been saying, I just can't, I just can't, I need to take myself out of spaces where people are going through the same thing. It feels too much, it feels too overwhelming. Somebody this week actually said to me, it feels helpful when you don't ask me how I am. You're not abandoning me. I'm the kind of person where when I'm ready to speak, I will come. I said to them, I don't want you to feel like I'm not there. How do I know when you will need me to approach you? And they said, they were self-aware, they're very self-aware. They said, I'm the kind of person that when I'm ready, I reach out. And so that helped me know how to navigate that situation. So we're not the same, and I think that this is why things like this hour or this 40 minutes that we set aside is helpful, because I'm hoping that we'll all at some point get to learn things about ourselves, where what's helpful, and then you can teach the people around you what you need, because we won't know. I kept asking because that was my way of showing up. That is the way I know helps me. When people ask me or check in, for them it was overwhelming. So I think taking stock of that, is it being around people, but people who aren't going through the same thing, because it gives you a mental break, an emotional break, but something about the energy. Are you a person that, benefits from the energy of others? That very same person said to me, I like being around people, versus me, where I tend to need just to be alone. I need to rest. I need to stay away from things that require a lot of energy and engaging, like talking, conversation, going out, that sort of thing. I need to sleep. I need my mind to literally shut off and then be around people. They said being around people but who are not particularly experiencing a similar thing gives them a mental and emotional break. And I thought that is so helpful, because it helps them not be consumed by the thoughts or consumed by what it is in the immediate circumstance. Some people might find that dismissive, like they don't feel like they are supported. So there's different ways, right? There's different ways to experience this. Somebody else said they process their trauma and grief by engaging in things that are mentally stimulating. It gives them a sense of purpose when they are in deep grief and trauma. It doesn't feel helpful to stop, to take leave or not go to work. In fact, they prefer being at work because it keeps them functioning. They have come to discover that they're the kind of person that if they stopped working, they might go on the extreme side of the spectrum, which they don't want to go down that path. They're not avoiding, they're not distracting. It helps them pace themselves through the trauma and whatever grief may be happening, is what I understood. So sometimes it can be our default. My default when I was engaging with that person was to say, hey, maybe take a day or two from work. And so that was very insightful for me to learn from them. And it also made me think of myself. So because I'm the opposite, I would benefit from taking a day or two from work or things like that. This idea of it's important to not always be doing stuff, doing something with the trauma, doing something with the grief. There are times where that is helpful, but we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do versus feel, versus sit, versus be. And a lot of us get uncomfortable with that other part of sitting. Pressure on, I need to say something, I need to write something, I need to exercise, I need to channel it, I need to do. It's there. Sometimes it can just be there. Imagine a friend just sitting next to you. So the trauma is not a friend, but it's something that is there with you. The grief is not a friend, but it's something that is there, and you just are there. You know, the friend with where they can come and it's very low effort. You don't have to be doing and entertain, and you can just be together. You know, I wonder if that's something helpful for us to think about in these times where there's such an influx of these things and experiences, and they can just be there, you know, and your feelings can just be there. You don't always have to go channel it and do something with it. Letting the process fold naturally, be it sitting in silence like I did earlier today, and trusting that my body will do what it needs to do. My body needed to cry, my eyes needed to cry, a release, and it came in the form of tears. The other week, my body needed a release in the form of sleep. My brain needed to shut down. Just feeling, and you know, when it comes to trauma and grief, a lot happens physically for us in our bodies. There's a book called The Body Remembers, and the whole science and research around that is how a lot of our experiences can be located in our bodies. So even sitting in silence, for us the doers, you are doing something because you're allowing your body to feel things. And seeing and tracking how far your body is in processing it on your behalf, and where else you might need to help it, like letting your tears fall. That is helpful for your eyes. It's been sitting there. It's been sitting there in the tear ducts. It's been sitting in your throat, the lump in your throat. It's been balled up in your stomach. All right, and you don't know what it is. Like, you're not even digesting food. Why? Because there's a release that needs to happen. For example, we're not always aware what we're feeling, so not doing a lot to distract can help give us a clue. You know, how are you doing, Hoplang? I don't know. Okay, maybe if I just sat in silence and realize, oh, my hands have been shaking, my hands are trembling. What is going on? If the trembling of my hands were a feeling or a sentence or a thought, what would they say? You know, they'd say you're feeling very anxious, you're feeling very nervous. You don't know how to handle a particular situation. You've been flooded this whole week with information that is frightening. And because you haven't been able to speak to somebody or take a moment because work has been so busy, it's showing up as shaking in the hands. I didn't even realize. I was feeling scared. Vicarious trauma. Back to that again. I didn't realize that, oh my gosh, I've been holding space for so many people, even just myself. I didn't realize that I'm feeling scared. I thought I was feeling sad, but I'm actually feeling scared as well. I thought I was feeling overstimulated, but I suppose I'm also feeling nervous, because multiple feelings can coexist at the same time. I've been thinking about and co-thinking this with people. Episodes like this help us take stock of how do we know when it's time to seek help. I like this weekly thing for us because it keeps us on track of, things are getting worse. What is getting worse particularly? Is it your mood? Is it the physical symptoms? Like, has your heart rate been pumping so fast the whole time that, like, the whole week, and then it's been 2 weeks? A month later, you've just been feeling like you can't breathe. Are things getting bad? Are they tipping the scale on the other side of, I might need to see if somebody else needs to come into the situation and help me, think about it. Is it now time to leave your place where I've been isolating because that was helpful in the beginning to help me process my thoughts? Is it now time for me to go outside? Is it now time to call a friend? Is it now time to alert people? Even if it's not professional help, is it now time, like the person I was speaking to earlier, is it now time to say, this month has been tough and this is what has been on my mind? In extreme cases, is it now time to seek professional help? What kind of professional? A lot of people don't know where to start. I always say your GP is one of the places where you are likely to get a starting point if you don't know what kind of help you need, because they are trained to suss out general things. So for certain physical symptoms, we'll tell them, okay, I can direct this person here. They often have referral base for psychologists. When a lot of people say, I don't know where to find a psychologist, I know that I want a psychologist particularly. They're the best, not the best, but they are the people that are helpful in saying psychiatry, start with psychiatry versus psychology. What is the difference? That sort of thing. They're the kind of people that say start with homeopathy or whatever it is. It depends what you're coming with, right? But I've sat with myself, I'm monitoring myself, I'm taking stock. This symptom is not going away, or I'm losing my temper with a lot of people. I'm feeling very low. I'm feeling more sad and sad every other day. I'm feeling very, very stimulated, and they can help you pinpoint. It's so overwhelming knowing how to seek help. That's also a recurrent thing that I get from people. It can be so overwhelming to know where to start. And so if you're in that position as a person, GP, if you already know, I want to see a psychiatrist, I want to see a psychologist, and you've got your starting point, great. But how do you know without tracking yourself? That's something I've been thinking for myself. So because by nature of my job, I'm exposed to all of this, right? And I'm trained for sitting with it, but taking stock of even on social media, the things we're seeing back to back. How do I know that now, it's tipping on the side where you're not well? I'd have to have moments like this where I am tracking myself. We can get stuck with finding the right kind of outlet, be it a podcast, be it a doctor, be it a psychologist. I just say do something. If you feel like, okay, now it's time for me to involve an external form or mode of support, doesn't matter. You can't start wrong. Somebody this week said to me, on a journey of healing, on a journey of processing, whichever point you intervene for yourself or somebody else can never be wrong, can never not be helpful. So when the problem is this big and that person or even yourself haven't had any sort of engagement with this big chunk of difficulty or challenge, it doesn't matter where you start, because a chunk will become part of the whole. You know what I mean? So if you've been sitting for months now feeling debilitated, feeling stuck, feeling isolated, feeling sad, feeling like you can't get out of bed, or feeling like you're overstimulated, saying to somebody for the first time in months, hey, I'm struggling with this, that's a great start. Saying, you know what, I'm gonna watch a podcast about a topic that I don't know when that will be beneficial, that's a big start. Walking into a clinic to say, I don't know what I need, but I feel like I need something, that's a great start. Having a couple of sessions with a therapist and realizing you're not the kind of therapist I need, or you are the kind of therapist I need, that's a great start. Start something. If you're spiritual, picking up your spiritual mode of reading, whatever it is for you, that is a great start. You know, just start grabbing a pen and paper to say, I'm going to scribble something. I think this might help me get my thoughts or the words out of my head. Seeing something, that's a start. I don't know why I feel inclined to draw. I like drawing. That's a great start. Just an expression of something versus, is this the right thing or not for me? What do you have to lose by just starting something? You know, walking outside to feel a fresh breeze, taking a deep breath because you haven't done that in a while, that's a great start. So I think when processing trauma and grief, we often want to start big. That is overwhelming. Energy conservation. A lot of us don't have energy right now. It's the fourth quarter of 2024. So much has been happening. The likelihood that we have to tackle big things with a big start is very small. Start small, whatever your small is. Somebody said to me this week, writing their thoughts has helped them assess how far on the spectrum of health or wellness or not wellness they are. That thing can also help you track the gravity, intensity of the unhelpful thoughts you're having. We have unhelpful thoughts all the time during the day without noticing it. So 5-10 minutes. A lot of people struggle with journaling. Piece of paper. You get what I'm saying? Piece of paper, post it. I am thinking this right now. And then see where your mind takes you. You could notice that you didn't even realize you were having this thought that is not helpful. And that's a starting point of saying, hang on, okay, let me attend to this. Or how do I attend to this? So writing things down for some people is a helpful way of processing grief. Somebody who lost a significant person to them wrote to them, and that helped them feel connected in some way, but it also helped them connect to their grief. That can be for somebody, that cannot be for somebody. What lands, what doesn't. It's a lot of effort to write, it's a lot of effort to journal, it's a lot of effort to know where to start, but it can be a helpful way of visualize yourself taking the jumbled words, thoughts, sentences, phrases in your mind and literally putting it somewhere else, and that being a sense of offloading, you know. Like I said earlier, some people don't find it helpful to talk to other people, and so it's a conversation with yourself. Previous episodes I've spoken about inviting the feelings to the table, dinner table, breakfast table, lunch table, whatever your meal of choice is. I think visualizing things like that I'm not forcing myself to do anything with this. I am just putting them there so that I can see them. They can see me. They can be there. This can be a bit lighter and free. Being mindful. I am so mindful now about my social media intake at this point. I've reconfigured, for example, my TikTok algorithm, because the same type of topic kept coming up by virtue of me watching a particular video in a time frame where I had capacity to engage, psychoeducate myself. There was something that I needed to know. You know, in my field, I need to know what's going on so that I'm just aware, but also then personally I was interested in, like, oh my god, what is going on here? And then it's gotten to a point where it's enough now. It's enough, and re-engaging and being intentional of watching particular things so my algorithm can reset itself. Staying off particular platforms because those platforms, maybe you have less control over the algorithm. Unfollowing certain accounts, not because I don't care, but because I just cannot right now. My nervous system cannot see certain things. Saying to people, please don't send me certain things anymore, that we used to find it helpful to send back and forth, because I just don't have capacity for it. So being very mindful of what I'm consuming. Certain news outlets that have certain propaganda that I don't feel is helpful for me in a particular topic. Also, you know, trusting that if something big happens that is a positive change about a topic that I am invested in knowing and following, I'm going to know. I'm going to know the same way I got to know that this thing was happening. Somewhere down the line, I'm going to know, right? And not fear-mongering yourself into, I have to be there every 5 minutes, because that is exhausting. That is mentally exhausting. So just measuring for yourself, staying current versus overloading yourself, and knowing your barometer. You know, there's a lot of guilt and shame that can come with not engaging with stuff, but also give yourself grace and kindness and others, which is, some of us aren't posting because we're feeling debilitated. Some of us aren't engaging not because we don't care, but because we ourselves are so triggered and our nervous systems just can't be shut down. Some of us are no longer engaging because we're scared. Some of us aren't living in places where it's safe to engage in that sort of thing. It puts a target on your back. So just opening your mind to other possibilities as to why it might not be helpful for you right now to engage in certain ways that you were engaging before, and respecting one another's way of processing. I think there's something, you know, including yourself, like, don't berate yourself for processing a particular way. You know, like the examples I've mentioned here, some people prefer to engage outwardly, some people prefer to engage inwardly. And whichever way you are wired, and a bit of both maybe for some of us, respect that. Respect what you need. Listen to your mind and body, and respect that that's the way that is productive, functional, and helpful for you. We can be the cruelest people to ourselves. I'm not doing enough, but you are, Hoplang. You are putting out something right now this week, even though you are so aware that you're holding a lot for yourself and others. you are if you've read certain things to a certain capacity. You know, I think there's a difference between complete oblivion, complete not caring about something, yeah, complete ignorance, you know, and we can do damage. We can do damage to ourselves if we dismiss our efforts. And also, I suppose the difficult thing about a global experience is that you realize we're all different and we have no choice but to accept that we're different. And that's hard because a lot of us would desire and wish that we all processed and dealt with things the same. It's also hard being a support structure where you feel deeply and strongly about how you support somebody and they're not wired that when they don't want it, and not taking things personal, you know, laying off the pressure, not taking things personal. I think if you just communicate with yourself and people and it's clear, that's something that could be helpful. I think the worst thing you can do is tell someone, including yourself, how to be when it comes to trauma and grief. I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. I don't know that that's helpful unless the person wants it. Yes, of course, there's something helpful about getting educated, or if you see somebody that is a professional and wanting particular tools, that's something separate. But I think sometimes we can veer off in the extreme of this is the only way that you can process trauma and grief. Absolutely not. So I'm very aware that in this conversation today, I have like put out a lot of things on the list: do, don't do, consider. But I want us to think of it as, I'm not telling you to do these things. I think it's just me thinking out loud of how these things play a part in how we're going to process trauma and grief. I am particularly not making this psychoeducational and turning it into a therapy session of this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what helps, these are the tools, because that's not what this is. That's not what this platform necessarily is. It's, we've now sat together for a couple of minutes, either acknowledge that, hey, there is something happening out there in the world for all of us. It has impacted us, it hasn't impacted us, it has impacted those around us, it hasn't impacted those around us. Doubt it. Am I avoiding? Am I just taking stock? You know, that's what today is. And yeah, thank you for holding space. I am going to do my 5 senses and just tune into myself. Take a deep breath. Off the bat, I can tell you now that I can feel the heaviness in my eyes, the heaviness in my chest. I think it's just a heavy week. It's just a heavy week. And I'm going to take things slow. I am going to engage with people. I think I've taken enough time to process for myself in my own individual spaces. I'm going to re-energize myself and just engage with people again. It's helpful that I'm in weekly therapy, so that's always an outlet and a space for me. So talking about it and just staying mindful. I think even showing up in this by, you know, having this conversation with you guys. I really feel better. And that's the little thing I've done for me today. So what's a little thing that you can do for you today that would help you in whatever way you feel you need help for the week? Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for holding space. Thank you for engaging in the different platforms that you guys engage regarding the things that we sit with every week. Thank you for sharing, you know, and growing our community. Thank you for subscribing, and I will see you again soon.